Hi, we are doing legal research for week 2. This is the lecture. If you have any questions, Keith, please send them to me. I want to make sure that you are on board with this because legal research is a really hard class to teach without one-on-one review of what you're writing or what you're researching. And so I want to make sure that we are in communication. So make sure that you're emailing me if you have any questions, okay? For week 2, we're going to start on chapter 5. And this is titled The Use of Digests, Annotated Law Reports, and Words and Phrases. Now, what does this mean? We're getting into the area of research where we're trying to solve problems. If a client comes into our office and says, I was bit by a dog and I had surgery because it was a really bad bite and it was on my face and I had tons of stitches and had to get plastic surgery. Do I have a case? It's your job to figure out the answer to that question. So how do we do that? Right? It's not like you can just go in Westlaw and say, dog bite cases. Oh, yeah, you can, actually. But you have to know what you're looking at, okay? Digests are a way of using editors at publishing companies because they've already done some of the research. So if I type in dog bite, Ohio, the editors at West have done a lot of the research for me because what's going to pop up are many cases that deal with that particular topic. There will be summaries or digests. That's what a digest is, a short summary. There used to be a magazine called Reader's Digest, where the editors of this magazine would go through and do short summaries of books or magazine articles, so you would get the gist of what it was about, and if you were interested, you could go read it. Well, that's what a digest is in law too, where editors have said, hey, this is a dog bite case. Here's the little portion of it, like we talked about in the last chapter, that deals with the dog bite case. So the reader, the person who is asking the question, doing the research, can look at that little digest and say, that case might be something that I want to read. Then click on it and read the case and see whether that case applies to your client's situation because they walked in with a dog bite and they had to have surgery and plastic surgery. So if the case you're looking at also has someone who was bitten in the face or in some place that was very conspicuous and had to have plastic surgery, it might be worth reading that case to see what was important to the court. Okay? And then we use all of that law that we have gathered to advise our client to present to the court to do the best job we can advocating for our client. Okay? So digests are a way that you can begin locating cases that might be helpful to whatever the topic is that you're researching. Okay? Now your book at the very beginning, and I'm only going to be lecturing through page 175 today. Okay, so chapter 5 begins on page 159. I'm only going through 175. This is a heavy-duty topic, and I'm going to be giving you a heavy-duty assignment to do with this chapter. So we're only going to do half of a chapter at a time. I want to make sure that you know what's going on with this before we get to the second half of the chapter next week. Okay? So the beginning of your chapter talks about the American Digest system. Don't worry about that. That's a lot of history. Okay? Where we want to start is on page 164, number 4 in your chapter that says West's Digest Topics. And on the opposite page on 165, figure 5-2, West's list of digest topics. It's only a partial list. What is this? The editors at West Publishing have said these are really big topics that we see showing up all the time. And so we're going to make these our main headings for how we categorize cases. So if you look, you'll see one for accountants. That's a pretty broad topic, right? But underneath accountants, there are tons of subheadings so that you can narrow down your search. So say that I have a case where I want to sue an accountant. They didn't file taxes properly, whatever. Okay? I know that West has a broad topic of accountants. And so I might start my research there. Accountant. And then underneath accountant, there will be subheadings. And maybe one of those subheadings is failure to timely file taxes. I'm going to click on that. And then maybe there's a subheading. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to start reading the digests. Remember, digest is a short synopsis of that case or that part of the case that applies to the topic I'm researching. Okay? So maybe I find 3 cases that I think, gosh, that might help me. That I need to read that case. Then I can click on that case and I can see cases that help my position or hurt my position or just apply to my position. Okay? That figure 5-2 is continued on page 166. And again, remember, this is only a partial list. Where am I going to find that? Where am I going to find West's digest topics? Well, I'm going to go into Westlaw and I'm going to put in, you can do a plain language search and just put digest topics and it'll come up. The nice thing about Westlaw, because it's a digital library, is it's almost like Google, where you can just type in what you want, and maybe you won't get to what you want with your first search, but you can narrow it to the point where you can find what you're looking for. Okay? So let's say I go and I have a topic, and then I find a subtopic, and that subtopic has a key number. Remember, last lecture, we talked about the fact that West editors categorize cases based on topics, and they assign each topic a key number. So let's say I read a case, and this is about suing accountants, and there's a key number for a case that I think actually is what I'm looking for, has the information I'm looking for. I'm going to hit that key number, and every case that deals with that particular topic is going to show up. Every single one. It's amazing. I don't have to spend hours and hours and hours pulling cases because the editors at West have done that for me with the key number system. And remember, it's called the key system because you put the key in, you turn the lock, you open the door, and there's all the cases. You're keying in to a topic that you're researching. And then you can find cases that are similar to what you're looking for. Okay? Your book talks about a descriptive word or topic and truly, when we're using Westlaw instead of a hard book library, it's really so much simpler than what your book is looking at. However, it's important for you to know what digests are so that you have a starting point for your research. Okay? Once you find your topic in your key number, you're going to hit that, and every case that you're looking for will come up. Okay? If you look on page 174, there is a sample page from a West Digest, and you'll see it's Atlantic Digest second. That means it's just that region of the country that covers this digest. You're not going to find cases in the Atlantic Digest that are from California or from Ohio, just from Atlantic coast states. Okay? Again, what West did is say, we're not going to sell you things you're not using. If you don't need cases from California, why are you buying that product? Right? So here's a page on page 174 where you can see how a certain case, a topic and key number cases have been digested. So for in your book, the example is for the topic of landlord-tenant, the key number is 166 paren 1, okay? And if you were in the digital library, you would simply put key number 166, landlord-tenant 166 paren 1, and all these cases come up. And what it does is it gives you the state. So MD, Maryland, the year the case was decided, and then a brief part of that case that appears within the text of the case that seems to apply to this key number. And then at the very bottom, there's the citation for the case. Now, if I'm really interested in this case, if this little digest looks good, I'm going to click on the citation for the case. Now, when you're in the digital library, your citation will be in a different color from the rest of your text. Click on it. You'll find the entire case, not just the little digest that you're reading here. Maybe it's a case that helps you, maybe it's not. But at least you're not flying blind, and you have a starting point. Now, typically, your digests will be organized in the order of federal decisions that deal with your particular topic, going down to state decisions. Typically, it'll go from the oldest case to the newest case. Okay? Why is it important to look at cases from 1967? Well, if the law hasn't changed since 1967, it's pretty well established law. You can rely on it. If it's a case that is still going through the court system and is a 2022 decision and we don't know what the Court of Appeals is going to do with it, well, it might not be as reliable. We're certainly going to argue it if it helps us. But the older cases, sometimes you can just say, look, this is well established. This has been in effect for over 150 years. Okay? So don't discount older cases when you're looking at them. That's my point. Okay? Now, that's as far as I want to go in the text for right now. And the reason why is, I'm going to give you a pretty substantial assignment. And again, this will be in your module for week 2. I know it'll be in there too, but this will be another way that you're alerted that you have to do it. Okay? On page 194, it says assignment for chapter 5. I'd like you to do numbers 1 through 6. Now there's subparts, I know. Again, this is a completion grade. You're going to get 10 points just for completing it. I don't want you to, not try it because you think I have no idea what I'm doing. That's what half of learning legal research is. You kind of have to get into Westlaw and play around with it. And these assignments give you an opportunity to do that. Now, I'm going to give you a caveat. The Westlaw that we have, some things we don't have access to. So, where we're talking about like number 7 through 13 especially, we don't have access to ALR, we don't have access to Pacific Digest, but we do have access to federal practice. So but there may be something that you run up against and you say, I don't have access to that library. Email me if that happens, okay? As far as I can tell, and I don't have the same Westlaw that you do. I have a version that I purchase that's a much more complete Westlaw than what the school is given access to through West for students to use. So if there's something that you run up against that you can't answer, email me and let me know, okay? I've worked through them they should not be difficult for you to find. But again, I don't have access to everything. I don't know everything that you have access to. So I just want to make sure that you have that. Okay? Next week I'm gonna lecture about ALR. We don't have access to ALR on Westlaw, but I am gonna give you just a brief little few questions to answer. So when you go into your module for week 2 of legal research, there will be an assignment. There'll be a link for this. There'll be in this lecture. There'll be an assignment. And then in discussion, there will also be a brief question, like a little essay question, for you to answer for me so that I know that you're on track with digests. Okay? All right. Any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer them for you. And I will look forward to seeing your answers to these questions. Thanks.